welcome to the After the Rain show, which is the show starring the way it sounds outside after the rain. I got my microphone in the window so you can listen to the way it sounds out there. Hopefully you can hear it this time. I could have done like music. I just had more things to say about like autism and Asperger's issues as usual. I feel like it's hard for me to talk about this stuff because I don't feel fully allied with the neurodiversity movement, and I certainly obviously don't feel allied with the mainstream movement. So I just wrote something on my website explaining my like basic opinions because I don't feel like explaining them in every video. But I guess I wanted to talk about the idea of people having a future or accomplishments and what that means. So or I guess language, what language is supposed to mean. I was kind of frustrated lately because I was talking to a person who is pretty against the neurodiversity movement for reasons that I more or less agree with, which are mainly related to thinking that the autism rights movement is all about Asperger's people, which I don't think it should be. And she said that she kept saying things like people like you trying to get services, or people as high functioning as you trying to be the voice of autistic people. And I didn't think that it made a lot of sense for her to try to make a statement about my functioning level or what I'm like by watching some videos of me on YouTube. So yeah, that's all I have to really say about that. I don't think I'm low functioning, but I also think that a lot of people who could make a YouTube video of themselves sounding smart and normal are pretty low functioning. And I think for me at least, your like impression of my functioning level tends to get worse and worse the longer you know me, because I mean, the other day I was gonna meet my friend, and my friend like wanted to make sure that I knew how to take a subway, like things like that. People who know me pretty well know that there are a lot of like regular 20-year-old person things that I don't necessarily know how to do, which seems, you know, like a pretty big deal, although I'm getting better and everything. But I'm just saying, people who know me well know that there are certain things I need help with, and assuming my functioning level from seeing me is not very fair. Okay, I was talking to this guy that I didn't know very well, and I mentioned my interest in working with people who have developmental disabilities, and he said that he could never do that because he thinks it's depressing to be around people who are retarded because they can't accomplish things or something. And then I also read some post online where someone was saying, well, like, come on, wouldn't you want to abort your kids with Down syndrome because, like, they're never going to have any better job than working in a grocery store? Well, I guess I just don't get it. I didn't really think that was, like, the purpose of life. And maybe it's because I'm not an atheist, but, like, I mean, I know lots of people with developmental disabilities who are the first thing I think of when I'm trying to tell someone why I believe in God, because they have, I guess, such a joy in, like, the everyday pieces of their life, you know? That's really beautiful to see, and I think it's hard for me to hear someone say that life is about getting a particular job or making particular accomplishments, and if a person can't do that because of their disability, then they're not, like, a useful person, and the whole fact that they exist is sad, because, like, I just feel like if you actually went in and saw any of these people and looked at them, you would see, like, what life is really about, and you'd be like, man, I can't believe I thought it was just so important that I get into med school, you know? I mean, they seem pretty aware of what's important. And something else that seemed to, I feel like sometimes when people talk about, like, classically autistic people versus Asperger's and who's qualified to speak about autism rights, they won't talk about something like language, which is obviously a big difference between most Asperger's and classically autistic people, but they'll talk about language as if language means everything about how a person feels, which I don't think is true. I think being a high-functioning person can actually make you pretty sad if you're under a lot of stress and people aren't very accepting of the fact that you're different and they expect you to be like a regular person, and then when you're not like that, they get angry with you or they think that you're like a bad person or lazy. I don't think that's very good for anybody, and I think sometimes a person who's classically autistic who always gets a lot of support may be happier because they're not made to feel bad about themselves for needing support. I'm not trying to make a statement about any group's overall happiness, but at the same time, I feel like people act as though having Asperger's or like being a high-functioning classic autistic person, as if that can't make you unhappy, because it can make you pretty unhappy. I found a piece of writing by Allison Singer, who's like a big Autism Speaks lady, and the opposite of a lot of things that I believe. And she was basically trying to say that she thinks Asperger's and classic autism are completely different. And she talked about her daughter, Jody, who is pretty nonverbal, although she's getting language lately, which seems cool. She seems like a really nice little kid from the videos that I've seen of her. And then this other girl that her family knew has Asperger's. And she's trying to say, oh, this girl who has Asperger's is like so smart and she has so much language and she's such a good writer and talker. So like, look at the difference between them. Like, this girl's so accomplished. My daughter is so unaccomplished. But it sounds like this girl with Asperger's is very unhappy, doesn't seem to have very many friends, is pretty violent, does need a lot of support in class despite being able to speak, and is very, hard to deal with. And it's especially weird because in the Autism Everyday video, Allison Singer talks about how upsetting it was to know that her daughter might attack people at school, and apparently this girl does that too, but somehow it doesn't matter because she has language. It just came off as kind of a mean article where Allison Singer was trying to say that it doesn't matter if a person is really unhappy as long as they have language. It seemed like the whole idea of the actual quality of life of the actual ASD person didn't matter at all. It was only certain accomplishments that mattered. I think that's terrible. And I mean, I do think language and life skills can improve a person's life a lot. I kind of feel like what improves a person's life the most is for the person to be taught to feel pride at the things that they're accomplishing. That's good for anybody of any functioning level. It's not good for a person with Asperger's to be taught to feel shame at the ways that they don't measure up to like a non-ASD ideal. It's good for a person with Asperger's to be able to feel pride that they can take the subway, which is something that I feel like every day, having learned to take the subway by myself pretty recently. It's great for a kid with autism to get language and really experience the joy of being able to communicate what they want. It's not good for that kid to be made to feel terrible or for their parents to talk about how terrible it is if they don't get language. And I'm going to close with a cover of a song that makes everybody sound good at music because it's just such a good song. Except now I can't find it, which is really bad because it means that I might not get to do it. Okay, this is going to make me sound like I'm good at music, and it'll mean that nothing bad that ever happens to me matters because I'm accomplished, but it's actually just a good song. The book of love is long and boring. No one can lift the damn thing. It's full of charts and facts and figures and instructions for dancing, but I love it when you read to me, and you can read me anything. Book of Love has music in it. In fact, that's where music comes from. Some of it is just trans